Hello, my name is Aaron Cavanagh and I'm the founder and editor-in-chief of Post-Burnout.com. Post-Burnout.com is a culture website dedicated to venerating burnt-out artists the world over. This is our website's podcast where we publish full-length recordings of our interviews, which are sometimes the unedited versions of our site's articles and at other times are exclusives. If you're a returning listener, thank you for coming back, and if this is your first time listening, thank you for checking us out. We hope you enjoy and consider subscribing, giving the episodes a thumbs up if you're on YouTube, or giving it a rating if you're anywhere else. It really helps us out. Thank you. Alright, in this edition of PostBurnout.com interviews, we have another double feature based on two artists who released new music yesterday that deals with the topic of toxic relationships. In the first half, we speak with the Irish singer-songwriter Miranda Faul about her debut EP, Rise and Run, her 2024, building her sound with producer Cian Sweeney, the EP's themes, and more. In the second half, James Feely, the frontman of the Crossmaglen indie band Brother Vice, talks about the band's new single, Somebody to Love, supporting the Wolfe Tones, losing their bassist, how their new music is influenced by playing cover gigs, and much more.
Hello.
Hey Miranda, how's it going? You alright?
Hi, Aaron. I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well. Yeah, first of all, I guess Happy New Year. How was your
You?
I guess last time we would have spoke was like the springtime of last year. So,
Yeah.
how was your now that the year is over? How was your 2024, whether professionally or personally, or however you want to interpret that?
It was a busy year. I did a lot of writing, a lot of productions. I started gigging with my band. So yeah, it kind of flew by. It was just amazing experiences.
Yeah, because I mean, if you think about it, like it's not even a year since we last spoke, and at the time you were kind of talking about like I was rereading our interview from last year, and um, potentially like the expansion of the project and kind of looking for kind of like new opportunities that were coming, and even gigging abroad. You were talking about going back to Amsterdam for a bit and doing some shows there. Did that materialize or?
I haven't done Amsterdam yet. That's on the cards as something I'd like to do. I did a few gigs in London in the summer, which was lovely, and I'm hoping to get back with my band in the spring for a gig because they were solo gigs I did.
Well, how did you feel about that actually kind of like bringing the music like abroad and bringing it to like a new city? Was that kind of was it exciting? Was it kind of I don't know, anxious? Was there any kind of like I don't know, because like obviously I mean when you build up a fan base in like a city, there's kind of I think a reliable I don't know, a reliable audience there, but when you kind of go
Mm.
like somewhere new, is that daunting?
So London was daunting in that, like, I have a couple of friends in Dublin, but I wouldn't really have fans in Dublin as much. So they showed up, and it was lovely. But it was just lovely to kind of to meet other musicians on the scene in London, and I met some lovely bands when I was over there. So it was a great experience, and it made me want to do it more. But it is a bit more daunting when you're kind of wondering, is anyone going to come?
How were the shows?
They were great. So I played one with a promoter called Hot Fox in somewhere in Shoreditch in July,
Yeah.
and then another one in August with Breaking Sound in Camden, and they were really lovely. I was just playing solo, just on vocals and guitar, but sometimes I kind of like to have that space just to really focus on the songs the way I wrote them. So yeah, they were really lovely.
How do you find the band dynamic has kind of changed the music or when you're making music now? Because obviously we're going to talk about the EP, but it's very much like your kind of acoustic folky music in collaboration with Keane's kind of more electro pop beats, and it's a very unique sound. How do you kind of translate that then to the like a full band setting?
So at the moment, my band arrangements would be quite different to my studio sound. Like we'd try and recreate some bass lines where my drummer would try to replicate the overall vibe of the beats. But I think just at the stage where I'm at now, it's a bit of a different sound. Like I would love eventually to have some backing tracks to maintain some more of the synth pop elements. But for now, it is quite different.
Do you find like as you were mentioning like doing the solo stuff and then doing it with full band? I mean, do you find I don't know when it comes to like writing a song. I mean, how do you know, I guess, what parts it needs? Because obviously, I mean, through production, through working with other artists, and through doing stuff yourself, I mean, I think like sometimes songs kind of only need the very bare minimum, where sometimes
Mm.
songs can really benefit from additional flourish. So I was wondering from your perspective, how do you kind of dictate like what a song needs, I guess, as the overall kind of finished piece that like most audiences are going to hear?
For me, I think it would depend on what sort of song I'd written, because some of my songs would be a lot more quiet folk. So one of my recent songs, You Would Have Let Me Down, was really a kind of a sad, quiet folk song. So when I was working on that with Cian, we did more piano and synth and more kind of gentle atmospheric things with the production. But then some of my other songs would be more upbeat, a little bit more kind of pop R&B. So with them, I'd want a bass line, I'd want a good beat, and I'd want it to be a little bit dancey. So I kind of would go by the vibe of the raw song I'd written.
Yeah, and I mean, do you kind of like meditate on songs for a while? Do you kind of like do you put them down before like recording them, try to play them live a few times, kind of get the general feel of them before bringing them into the studio, and then even when you kind of record a track, do you like let it kind of, I guess, fester for a bit before releasing it to the public?
So the way it's kind of gone over the last year is I was writing a lot, but usually in a moment when I was like really upset or something dramatic in my well, in my own head, something dramatic in my life had
Sure.
happened. And usually it's the ones that kind of I sit with them after and think, oh, I actually think that might be a good song. I always start by making my demo. I'll send it to a few people. I like to kind of try them out on open mics because then, like with some songs, people say, oh, that song really has a hook. It was stuck in my head. And just, I kind of would go off getting those bits of feedback and trying it with the band. And then once I reach the point that I want to record it, it's usually quite quick. Like once we go in and record it, find the sound, get the production done, I I don't sit on them for long. I feel like, okay, that's done. That needs to get out.
You rework songs much? You like re-edit them, or because last time we were spoken, you kind of mentioned that a lot of it's very instinctual and you kind of like you like to kind of base the songs you're going on the instinct rather than overthinking them too much. But in general, I mean, is there much of a rewrite process, or do you find that you kind of generally get what you want on the first write, on the second write?
I haven't been rewriting as much lately as I used to. Maybe like my first songs, when I decided to record them, I would sit with them for longer, trying to kind of fine tune the lyrics. The ones I've done lately have more like I've written them in a crazy few hours and then I haven't really gone on to change them much, but I will normally, if I've decided to go into the studio, I'll kind of assess the lyrics almost as a standalone piece of writing and see like, is there a narrative flow here? Do I need to tweak anything so that it actually works as one 3 minute song that delivers a message?
Yeah, do you find that actually you have to kind of rewrite songs to meet the melody to kind of meet the BPM like trying to get as many syllables in like in a verse as like as needed. Do you find that
Mm.
actually trying to write to the music in any way kind of influences your dictation?
I think when I write, I sort of do that because like when I've written a song, I always look back and it just seems like this crazy hour where like I'm constantly playing in my head all the things that rhyme and I'm kind of because I'm like singing it out loud, I'm in the like I'm deep in the sentence structure. So I don't really go back to it after that. But I think as I'm doing it, I'm very aware of the structure and the length of the sentence and the fact that I'm in a verse or in a chorus.
Yeah, and like also, I mean, the when it comes to because like your music, as you said, is like very personal and very like vulnerable, and just very like raw and like really just dealing with what's on your mind in a very kind of unapologetic way. Has there ever been songs that you find have been perhaps like a little too fresh that you're a little too kind of uncomfortable with, or is everything kind of fair game for you?
I think it's both in that every song feels too fresh and too vulnerable, but I do it anyways, and then I panic. Like I think one of the songs that I'm recording soon to release in the first half of this year is about a very fresh situation. So I wrote the song in October, and the person I wrote it about, I think they'll hear it and be angry at me. But I think for me, like my number one priority is if I think this is a good song, I want to release it, I'll just deal with the consequences after.
That's fair. Yeah, just write first, ask questions later.
Yeah.
Actually, when it comes to your new EP, Rise and Run, I mean, how long are like the songs on this compared to like the modern day, like how much space is there between the topics that you're singing about? Because obviously, I mean, like How Much of a Man was like one of your first singles. It's been out for 2 years, but I mean, really, I mean, you've your career so far is still kind of like very young and nascent. You only really started like post-pandemic, I think in 2022, if I'm correct. So I mean, like only like less than 3 years now at this point. So I don't know, does that feel kind of like a lifetime ago?
I think it feels like a when I started, it feels like a lifetime ago 'cause I think I've gone through some stages. Like when I started in 2022, I hadn't really found a producer or a studio sound that I that felt like what I wanted. So it was only really last year in 2024 that I started working with Cian and found that sound. So these songs, they're mostly songs I wrote in the last year, but the main track, Rise and Run, is one of the first songs I wrote. I guess it would have been 5 years ago now, the first time I wrote something. But it was overall, I think it tied together what I feel is my sound now. That was on the EP.
Yeah, I mean, like, obviously, I mean, like the EP, and this is just my interpretation. Maybe I got it wrong, but it seemed to me, um, I mean, you're taking kind of like tracks that you've released as singles before. Obviously, the title track is hitherto unreleased, but you're taking songs that you've written before and putting them in this EP. And I think actually, really, it works as kind of like a consistent theme. And the theme that I got from it was kind of reevaluating your own sense of self and self-confidence and self-worth by kind of retrospectively looking back on like toxic relationships that you've been in. Is that a fair interpretation?
Yeah, because I would say it's about me, and then all of the songs are about difficult relationships. So yeah, I would say that's a fair interpretation because I think I've got childhood dynamics and relationships with parents in there, and then romantic relationships as well. And I think just ending with "You would have let me down" was maybe about taking a stance if I can actually walk away from these situations and put myself first.
It seems to me to be an EP. If there's a consistent theme going through it, it is growth, and also I think one thing like when you kind of like reevaluate certain hardships in your life, and especially when they feature other people to whatever degree, it's often a weird thing where you're kind of like, did this affect them in a way? I
Mm.
mean, is music also trying to directly invoke kind of how do I put this? Is it trying to get the person in question that the song is about to also reevaluate their position too, or is that something you just don't think about?
I think so with the title track Rise and Run, that's a song I wrote to a parent, but it's so the whole purpose of that song is about I can actually just leave you to suffer and I can see the suffering and not try and fix it and I can move on. So it's actually about breaking away from this idea of wanting that person to heal because sometimes it's just too hard to do that.
Hmm.
But then I don't think actually that there's much of an element of wanting to influence those people because then Delicate is kind of about, again, me being stuck in a bad situation and you would let me down. It's about me walking away. So I think it takes a bit of a step back from wanting to help those people.
Do you also find like when you're making these kind of like emotionally vulnerable songs that is there any kind of degree of wanting to aid people who maybe going through similar situations who I don't know, maybe not, maybe don't realize the things that you've realized, like from your experience, like to kind of help them maybe actually see the situation from a kind of third degree perspective.
I think that's something I haven't really thought about, but if that was an effect, that would be that would be wonderful. But I think and like all of the songs on the EP were songs that I wrote in an emotional moment, so they weren't songs with that had an intention. But I think like every now and then, if like I've had like someone has said to me that actually really nice that I just write this vulnerable thing and share it because they find it helpful, which isn't something I think I've thought about really, but it is very nice to think that that might help someone.
Yeah. How do you feel about the songs now, like looking back at it with a bit of detachment?
I think I like what they capture in that, like, so it's delicate. There's nothing in there about me trying to help myself. It's just about being stuck and being aware that you're stuck. And I think that that's also important because sometimes if you're stuck, you want to hear something you relate to. You can't always imagine things improving.
Yeah.
Um, but I am glad then to have some other songs that are about taking a stand on the same EP, so it's not completely just being stuck in a bad place.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, the songs themselves are kind of individualized. It doesn't seem to be necessarily like each song seems to be their own like mini text, if that makes sense. But I think the true line through it, you really do see, and it's very impressive. I mean, just like in the course of four songs, you really do see like a sense of growth, and it does feel like a journey in a lot of ways. Was the kind of placement of the song something that you and Kim were working on in terms of actually trying to go, okay, we're going to go start from A to B and we're going to end in like a completely different state because I mean, um, it seems like I don't know, it really just feels like, you know, a really good short story where you see someone kind of grow. I can't think of the word now, but there's like, I don't know. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about when short stories kind of have continuity between them. I can't think of the term now,
Hmm.
but it kind of reminded me of that where there's a continuity between the songs, just in terms of like your own personal growth. So was that something that when you just look back on the songs and you just look back on the placement, this is kind of going back to what I was saying earlier, where they kind of work together as a collective. Did you find that you could actually see like a story kind of brewing there, or what was the kind of thought of putting these songs together in this order?
So I think part of the reasoning behind the order was stylistic as well, in that like over the last year or two, I was trying to figure out what my sound was, and I had like some people would say, "Oh, but that one's very pop and that one's very pokey. What's your folky? What's your sound?" And I think something that I've been trying to kind of accept for myself is that it's actually okay to have, as long as like it's my voice, it's my writing, it's my overall style, it's okay to have the more gentle songs and the more upbeat songs and the one that's more R&B, one that's more folk pop. So I kind of wanted to start with Rise and Run because that's one of the first songs I've written and it captures like I guess my earliest trauma, and just to kind of follow the energy into Delicate and Not Much of a Man and the more gentle ending. I guess the middle kind of has the being stuck. It's like wait, stuck in a bad relationship, stuck in a bad situation, and then ending again on another positive stance of just walking away.
When it comes to the topics you write about, I mean, obviously, I mean they're very personal and they're very real. Do you consider ever writing from a fictitious standpoint, or does everything you have to write have to be based on life experience? How do you kind of feel about that as a songwriter?
It's something I've thought about a bit lately because I I send my mother a lot of my songs and she's been getting annoyed at me for continuously writing all these heartbreak songs about being overwhelmed by all of these bad men, and she would tell me like just write about something else.
Hmm.
And I was kind of arguing back that I usually don't choose to write. I'm just upset, so I write. And
Hmm.
but I've been thinking even just about choosing to write a song about some of my own opinions on mental health or the world around me or another aspect of my life that I'd have to actually decide I'm going to write about that now because I wouldn't randomly be upset about it one day is something I'd think about. I'm not sure about fully fictional songs. Maybe one day, but I think at the moment I kind of like to just write off what I'm feeling.
Well, obviously, I mean, like fictitious works themselves have kind of some germ in the author's like original thoughts and opinions on kind of the world around them that they kind of
Mm.
express through fictitious writings and fictitious characters to try and explore a theme. I don't know if you agree with that, but that's my opinion.
I would, I think I haven't tried it enough to have like to really have a very developed opinion on it, but I think even sometimes if I'm writing and I end up writing about something that didn't fully happen or that maybe happened to a friend, it would usually I can see an emotion that comes from one of my own relationships or one of or just from in me is in that story I'm telling.
Yeah, but that actually that's a good point. I mean, would you feel like comfortable writing about other people's experience, or at least your perception of other people's experiences, or is that something that to you is off limits? How do you feel about that?
I think it would depend if I was writing about someone who was like me, like if it was something that had happened to a friend or someone um I could relate to more easily, I'd feel more comfortable. But I think if I was writing about someone in another country or someone in a difficult situation I wasn't in, I would be wary. I'd want to talk to them in
Sure.
about the situation.
Yeah, I think that's I think it's important to kind of be considerate about what you're actually writing about because like sometimes even if you have like the best intentions, sometimes you might accidentally um uh give a message that's like counterproductive or seems perfunctory or something. Is that stuff that worries you too, or?
I think it hasn't really come up for me because I've just been writing about my own experiences. So if someone had a criticism of how I described the experience, I could just argue back that that was about me.
Yeah.
Um, I think even like I've written some bits just every now and then about maybe what's happening in Palestine or something, but I would be very wary of putting that out anywhere without really assessing how is this coming across? Does this seem like really disengaged or moralistic or so I would be wary of that.
Yeah, no, I think yeah, saying about geopolitics is something that's like very important. But yeah, I do think like that's a good example. That can be like a good tripwire sometimes, or like something where again people can just kind of like find themselves falling over. Even something like mental health, as you were kind of mentioning there. I mean, everyone's
Mm,
kind of experience with their own mental health is so I think individual to the point where you could have people with the same kind of like um diagnoses like general anxiety disorder, for example, and like you could get like a room of 15 people with that same diagnosis, but everyone's like experience with it is so unique and idiosyncratic that sometimes it's hard to I think describe a feeling like that that's universal, if that makes sense.
yeah, so I think if I was going to write a song, like say I've written some very dark songs and I wouldn't say that my overall life is very dark, but I that would be honing in on a dark moment or a dark experience, but that would come from me.
Yeah,
And I don't think I would represent that if I was ever releasing it or sharing it as embodying what anxiety is, or
yeah.
I would just release it and probably not say much and just let it do its own thing and let people interpret it.
Well, I think like again, that's like if people have similar life experiences, so that's kind of like where people will probably come up to you and go, "Yeah, I really relate that song," or "It really
Mm,
helped me." I mean, like you said, I mean that's not really your intent, but I think it's always a good knock on, to have people kind of like be able like, "Hey, that song helped me," you know.
yeah.
Um, now as a songwriter, do you find like now that your career is in motion and there's kind of an expectation obviously for songwriters to have certain bodies of music and certain certain determined kind of like pockets of time, like every couple of quarters you have to have like a new single out or something like that. Does that kind of like worry you? Because I mean you were saying that your music is written in times when and I relate this too because I like write like my own stuff when it's often like when I'm motivated by despondency in my case. But do you find like the expectation to have new songs is daunting, or is it something that you actually like, that you like the fact that there's that expectation there because it kind of keeps you motivated to keep going?
I think I like it as a way of because I manage my own career myself as as kind of a structure to work towards. So like okay, I need my March song, my May song, my July song, which songs are they going to be? I need to book the studio for this day. I need to record it, get all my content by this time. So it gives me a structure. I think in terms of writing, I haven't reached a point where I've thought, oh my God, I need to write a song to meet that deadline because like last year I wrote a lot of songs that I like, so I have them kind of queued up to be the songs I'll release this year. So I think if I reached the point maybe where I wasn't writing, I would just take a break from because I think even it can feel like, oh, I need that song every 2 months. But I look at other people who haven't released anything in half a year or a year, and I think that's okay too. Like maybe they're writing, maybe they're gigging more. So I use it to guide myself, but I wouldn't stick to it religiously.
No, I think that's a good point too. I mean, I think like you should absolutely like prioritize your own kind of like schedule and your own mental health over like the expectation or the need to kind of constantly have stuff out. I've talked to other artists about this and the consensus, and I'd like to get your opinion on this, is that often artists who kind of like take that break to go away and to actually kind of like really think about the art that they're going to be putting out can sometimes feel punished for doing so because if you're not in the spotlight constantly, there's people kind of forget about you and
Mm.
people kind of like don't really pay attention to you or whatever. Does that kind of like worry you that like potentially like if you take too long of a break, people might stop paying attention, or do you kind of find that if you kind of like accrue people who actually really like the stuff you're doing, they'll understand, like good things take time.
I think at the moment I would be quite afraid of taking a break in that I feel like I'm trying to build something and time is quite precious if you start to get a bit of attention and a bit of a fan base, but you haven't really broken through. I would be very worried to lose any time. So I think like even looking at the next year, I wouldn't really want myself to take a break, and I don't know where I'll be at the end of this year, so I think I'd reassess then. But yeah, it would be something that I'd be afraid to do.
You have do you make like career goals and ideas for like, okay, this year this is what I'm gonna do, bang bang bang, or is it kind of like just doing it more kind of organically and kind of like letting what happens happen? How do you kind of like, what's the, I guess, the pragmatism versus the kind of random nature of the world we live in?
I find it easier to do trickle down goals because I've found over the last year or two that like every career development I make wasn't something I would have planned. It just
Yeah.
came from a piece of press or meeting someone at a gig. So I usually have I'm actually looking at them now in front of me. Like I have my like the gigs I want to play, a number of monthly listeners I want to reach, and then when I reach them I just take them down and I'll update it. So I think I took down 5,000 monthly listeners and now I have 10,000 monthly listeners up there. So I kind of like to trickle along rather than trying to have this big plan for the year.
Yeah, and do you find that if you don't meet certain expectations, that that's okay too?
Yeah, I think it's something that I've been noticing a lot because like I apply for lots of opportunities and I don't get some of them and or like I won't get a certain piece of press for a release, but then I always get something that I'm really happy about at the same time, which makes it easier then to accept, okay, I didn't get X, Y, and Z, but I got this thing. So I think, yeah, just not thinking, oh, I didn't get that opportunity, therefore I'm terrible is important.
You're talking about kind of the independence of kind of being able to self-manage. What would you say are the difficulties for self-managing for yourself?
I think at the point I'm at now, I've done a lot by myself, but just to really break through it, like support slots and um just more opportunities and showcases. I think that's a bit hard to break through fully by yourself. So
Mhm.
I think kind of laying the groundworks of a career is fine, but I think I'm at a point where like I'd like to have a booker. I'd like to have like some people working with me to just reach a further level.
Do you find that the opportunities available in the kind of Irish music scene is accommodating to people who are doing it the way you're doing it, which is kind of self-reliant, self-management, or do you find that there are certain hurdles to people who are doing it that way? Like whether that's in terms of getting gigs, getting festival slots, getting airplay, whatever, or do you find that that's been pretty manageable?
Well, for me, so I've never used PR or I've always booked my own gigs and things, and I feel I have gotten lots of nice press from radio and magazines. So I think they read their emails from independent artists, which is very nice. And over the last year in Dublin, I have played lots of nice gigs. So promoters do reply and do like book people directly. But I think the obstacle is really like booking festivals and booking nice support slots. I mean, I've heard from some friends in the business that like the organizers, they don't want to talk to an artist, they want to talk to an agent or a representative. So I think
Yeah.
that's a bit difficult to do for yourself.
Do you find like just the connections you're making organically in the music scene has been sort of beneficial? Because it seems to me like from like the way I talk to people, it seems like the Irish music scene at the moment is pretty collaborative. It doesn't seem like particularly cutthroat. Do you find like people are kind of like passing on information, passing on contacts, things like that to try and help further people's career in a kind of altruistic sense?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think I'm more aware of the community in Dublin, but there is a lovely community where through other artists, I've been recommended to a promoter who's given me a gig, and I have some friends who are kind of at my stage doing what I'm doing, and we talk all the time about like what we're doing with our TikToks and what we're doing with our songs. And I'll send them a list of contacts, or they'll send me something. So I do feel it's quite collaborative.
Do you find that aspect of things like keeping up with the social media, keeping them updated can be kind of exhausting because I do that thing too, and it's just for the website, and it's just like I just find it very time consuming and very that's the part that I find to be like the real obligation is getting like the promotional stuff out and stuff.
Mm.
How do you feel about that?
I don't mind it. I think there's a part of my brain that's just very scientific and likes administration. So I like doing my Instagram, getting my content. I don't mind doing that. I think it's just TikTok for me. Sometimes I just make too many TikToks and I spend the whole day making TikToks or seeing who's liked them or who's viewed them. And I just feel like I lose so much of my headspace for that day. So that's something I find very hard to create good boundaries with. But other platforms I think that are less invasive, I don't mind doing.
And I guess I've kind of asked almost everything. I guess one of the final things I'll sort of touch on is now when it comes to writing with a band in mind, how collaborative is that? I mean, are they kind of suggesting things? Because obviously your relationship with Cian Sweeney, I don't know if I mentioned his full name earlier, but who you work with as a producer who it's very in demand at the moment. I mean, I think when I was looking him up, I think the Irish Examiner called him like one of the best I don't remember the exact quote and I want to misattribute, but they called him one of the best pop producers in Ireland at the moment, or
Mm.
something akin to that. Obviously, I mean, your relationship with him is very collaborative, is very give and take. You can really see, like that's what I like about this EP is that you can really see your influence and his influence is very apparently. And I think like. What I really enjoy because I did a review of the EP for the Goo, whether it get published or not I don't know, but I think like I compared like the music is very tranquil and calming I found out on the EP, but then like you just come in and just break the listener's heart with like these lyrics, and I compared it I think to a razor blade skipping along a scenic broke. That was my simile. So do you find like that kind of like I don't know, do you find like kind of music that's palatable is often a good vehicle to kind of break people's heart, I guess, with the lyrical content.
I think it's something I was very aware of with Rise and Run because that is like it's quite a sad song. It's about abandoning a parent and thinking they're in a terrible place, but I'm gonna live for myself. So it is a very heavy song, and but I wanted it to be a dance song. So like when I was kind of rehearsing the vocals for the studio, maybe I was like dancing along to it. I was like, this is a bit ridiculous. I was like, but I kind of want to make it a positive, energized thing, even though it's heavy. So if someone is relating to it, it's not like, oh, you have to wallow in this forever. Like there's some positivity. And I think with the band, I think like they're all quite passionate about the songs, which I like means a lot to me, and they really do um put a lot of input into how we arrange them. But I think sometimes I forget then what the lyrics are about and I only hear the music. And then sometimes we're gigging or rehearsing and I suddenly realize maybe on a day when I'm feeling more vulnerable that I'm thinking about this really sad thing. And I find it all a bit overwhelming, just the combination of playing with these musicians I'm really good friends with who I respect and then singing about something really sad. But
Mhm.
it's all art, I guess.
Yeah, they understand. They're artists too.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess one thing I'll ask is kind of what have you been listening to lately yourself? I mean, do you find that this like discovering new music, listening to new things, influences the way you write or influences the music that perhaps you're interested in kind of incorporating into your own project. Yeah.
Yeah, I think something I've been noticing a lot lately in kind of new releases, is that there's a lot of, I guess, what I would call story time. Like, it's not just this pretty verse that rhymes well for the music. Like, people kind of want a story and they want something they can relate to. Maybe because I've been on TikTok more than I used to be, and I've been seeing like these songs that are just really you're just listening to a story, and maybe that's actually I found that validating because I've sometimes told had people tell me no, there are too many lyrics, like say less. But I've thought I can tell this rambling story in a song. Some people will actually want to listen to that.
Yeah, that's interesting actually, where the kind of the platforms that we use can kind of dictate the art in a way where
Mm,
you know, again, on something like TikTok, they want something to be more condensed and laconic where you know, obviously, I mean, there's like a huge artistry to you know, to just telling a long form story. And it's interesting too because I think we've seen the kind of like the resurgence of like LPs where people want kind of like longer plays to be this like I don't know, something that they sit down with and kind of like actually meditate on and listen to and really kind of engage. Do you find that um the mediums that are out there, be it like social media or be it LPs or anything like that, do you think that kind of influences how you conceptualize your art, or is that just something that you create your art and then you deal with how that fits for a respective platform later on?
I think when I'm writing the song, I in that moment I'm only thinking about the song, but when I'm thinking about the release, I think it's maybe influenced in that I don't think of a project, like I don't think of an album. I think of each song and how I can tell that story with videos and pictures and content after, and what that song would represent as a standalone release, just because I think there is a lot of pressure to have that constant build-up of releases. So that it would influence me in that way, but I think when I'm writing, I wouldn't be aware of really, oh, I need to tell a story because that would do well on TikTok.
I guess the final thing I'll ask is, yeah, what do you have coming up for 2025? I mean, obviously you're working on new music. You have kind of the aspirations to play Netherlands. I should have mentioned. I don't think I mentioned it. You studied in Amsterdam for a number of years, so that's
Mm.
why you have kind of like friends there, and you're involved with the music scene there, at least as a patron. I'm not sure if you were performing over there when at the time, but yeah, but what does 2025 kind of hold for you, I guess?
So I think the main thing I'm focusing on 2025 is a couple of releases I've got lined up that I'm excited about, and just hoping to get some more support slots, some festivals, which will be my first festivals, and hoping to get over for a London gig with my band, and also just to branch out a bit to some more different towns in Ireland.
Yeah, have you played outside of Dublin here, or?
No, I've played in Carlow a few times because I'm from near Carlow, but I haven't played anywhere else in Ireland, so that's very much on the cards.
Yeah, well, I think it's great at the moment because I think like every little pocket of Ireland has some kind of like music scene now. I think it's really great
Mm,
because you know, it used to be kind of just like the big cities like Dublin, Limerick, Cork, Galway, Belfast, and now it's kind of like everywhere it seems to have like some venue, some room that people are kind of actually excited to go to and to play to. Everywhere has like own
yeah,
little scene, so I think there's like plenty of opportunities now, which I think is really great that, you know, you don't have to be from, or either don't have to be from one of the big cities or within proximity to one of the big cities to be able to see a show. So. I think
yeah.
I think it'd be great to actually kind of like see. Do you actually? This is something I just thought of now. Does geography kind of influence your art or the way you or give you concepts of things to think about?
Geography in what way, or like
So
where I'm
when
from,
when
or
you go to a new place, like does that kind of like, you know, say going to London for example,
mm.
does that kind of like influence you in any way? The things you're seeing, the different experiences you have, you know, or even going around Ireland or anything like that, does that in any way influence you?
Well, I think like I went on a few trips last year. I went to London. And I think like sometimes when I'm stuck in my life, I can get more into routine, but when I'm on a trip, I chase experiences. So I had a couple of random, messy romantic experiences in London and other places this year, which I ended up writing songs about. So maybe in that way it influences me. It pushes me into living more, which is kind of what I need to write about. Um, but I think even like if I'm at home in Carlo, all my friends and family are there. So the only gigs I've played there, I'm a lot more nervous about what I'm playing to them because if it's something about my family or like a friend, they'll actually know the people I'm singing about. So that would influence, like I feel a bit more free in Dublin and even online on TikTok. I'm like, I don't know these people. I can say anything.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's yeah, that's another thing that like sometimes when you're writing these like kind of songs that you were mentioned there that like your mom was saying to you like do you have to write about like all this heartbreak, you not write about something else, but do you think it's kind of important to actually kind of have that barrier and go like I'm not going to let other people influence my work?
I think it's maybe for me, it's a bit of a middle ground between I want to listen to my mum and consider should I try? Maybe this is something I should try and I should branch out. But I could conclude from that, no, I'm only going to write when I feel. So I wouldn't want to close myself off to even considering the idea.
Yeah, no,
But
that's I think that's very important not to be too like intransigent in your views.
yeah,
All right, perfect, Miranda. Is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap up, or
I don't think so. No, because we've discussed the EP. Sadly, there's no release gig because the release gig already took place
okay?
before we had a delay in the EP. So no, nothing really.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Miranda, and best luck with the EP and everything you have coming up this year. And take care.
Thanks, Aaron.
Bye.
Oh yeah,
Hey, James, how's it going?
not too bad, Aaron. Not too bad. What about yourself?
I'm grand, man. It's nice to see you again. Don't know if you remember, we actually spoke a while ago when Another Day in Air TP came out. Yeah, so that was
Remember,
summer 23, I think, right?
23. We were in the studio that day. Yeah,
Ah, you do remember. That wasn't a test, by the way. Um, yeah, I was kind of wondering. I mean, like, how's Brother Vice kind of been since then? I mean, obviously, you know, quite recently, you've been working as a three piece. At the time you were four piece. And yeah, I was also wondering about that. Is like, is your bassist left? So is that something that you're looking to replace, like a new bass, or are you kind of doing things bassless at the moment?
we're doing things pretty baseless at the minute. We did have another guy join, but really just the schedule of things didn't suit him. So the three of us just worked away at it, and we started taking on cover gigs and started just recording the songs ourselves. And one of us would record bass for it. Um, it worked out okay. I mean, we get a lot of cover gigs now, and we still can release music, so it didn't really hinder us in any way. But yeah, we would be on the lookout for someone that's going to be really committed to it and willing to give it their all as well.
This is an ad pitch then.
Yeah,
Beyond just that though, I mean, how's the time kind of been treating your band? I mean, in terms of opportunities, I mean, I know you're getting like a lot of radio play at the moment, seemingly in Ireland and the UK. Yeah, how's all that kind of been just in terms of like the reception to the band every time you release a new project? Because, obviously, I mean, there's so much like blood, sweat, and tears that goes into every artistic piece anyone makes that you do kind of want it to be your effort to be reflected back in the reception, you know what I mean?
yes, absolutely. I feel nowadays we got a lot of reception from the last release, which was Money. We kind of just we've got a great PR agent, Cobra,
Yeah,
promotions. So she's great help with that, Ree. But yeah,
shout out Ree, yeah, she sent.
she's lovely. Like she's really good help. She's done a lot for us there over the last couple of months. But yeah, it's all sort of working out well at the minute. I mean, we got a lot of radio play, like you mentioned, a lot of coverage with press as well, and we're just taking it in our stride, really.
Mhm.
But yeah, just enjoying it, just enjoying releasing music and then playing the gigs so we can. It all seems
Yeah.
to work out. It's happy enough.
Yeah, because when we spoke, you guys had just we all just kind of come out of the COVID pandemic, and you were kind of like really only gigging seriously for about a year at that point. So it would have been, I guess, Jesus, it would have been about 3 years this year, which seems crazy to me that 2022 is that long ago. But is that something that you feel like you're kind of making up for lost time because the project began in 2019. Obviously COVID happened, and then you kind of like I guess the benefit was you had like material that you were set on that you could kind of like work on then. But how do you feel like in terms of like the pace of the band has been since then?
Yeah, well, it can always go a bit quicker, but it is the music.
Fair enough.
and nothing's ever promised really. I feel like right now with the three of us are pretty happy with each other, and what's happening and what we're doing. And when we're not headlining any shows, we're not headlining any festivals, but we're still having a really fun time playing these, cover gigs and small gigs and releasing music, and that's kind of basically what the main thing is, what it's all about. We've just found love doing that itself.
Are you doing cover gigs under the Brother Voice name?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I do a lot of cover gigs. Yeah, so it's really working out there.
Is this a good way to kind of crowbar in your original scope? Okay, we're gonna do like one here, and
we haven't crowbarred anything already yet, but we're getting our name out there, which is probably the main thing. And it is, the numbers do show on social media as well. Once you play a gig, you'll get a couple of new followers after the night. So it's all working towards that main goal.
Actually, do you think doing like smaller cover shows like that, I mean, actually helps when you do the bigger kind of Brother Voice original music shows?
Absolutely, yeah. I know my nerves and anxiety have all sort of faded away since we started taking the cover gigs on, because you're just more used to being in a lively setting, being around a lot of drunk people, and learning just how to talk to people through a microphone and from a stage. It does really work, yeah. Somebody once told me it's the best workout a musician can do is just do cover gigs for their gigs, and it does work out, and 100% I'd back them up.
Do you find the songs that you're playing in any way influences your songwriting now?
If Believe by Cher influenced by songs.
It's a good song.
People love it, yeah. But I'm starting to notice, even when I start writing, the writing process has kind of changed, and I'm sort of fixated on writing something that's universal and that everybody will like, and not be stuck in a one sort of groove with music. But yeah, absolutely, it does affect the songwriting as well, 100%.
I like that you said that like you're trying to make something that's universal, because I think a lot of like cooler artists feel the need to kind of like reject that and make things like as kind of I don't know, selective as possible, and to kind of have as selective an audience as possible. But I like that someone's just like freely admitting, like, no, we want to be popular. We want people to like us.
Yeah, yeah, why not?
Has the music you've been listening to changed since Brother Voice project begins? And do you find anything that you're discovering? Because obviously, as you go through life, you're just discovering new things and incorporating new music. So how do you find like what you've been listening to lately has been kind of changing or altering the sound in any way, or has it?
Yeah, I mean, I used to be big into Catfish and the Batman and Sam Fender and Oasis, and I've sort of moved from that, and I've really fell in love with Fontaines DC and Wonder Horse. I absolutely love the two of them. Even though it's a very niche sound, I can't get enough of it. Really, it's just nice to play them on the headphones and sort of break away from reality with something that's so obscure, like not obscure, but it's so different than everything else that's out these days, and sort of lose yourself in it.
So do you find that kind of like is kind of encroaching into your music, or do you find that like you're able to kind of differentiate what I guess people expect from Brother Voice versus what you're interested in at any given time, or do you want the project to kind of just be able to morph to whatever sound you would like?
Yeah, I feel like we're always going to work towards something that we're going to like and that's going to work with people. And we're willing to go in any direction, really, whether it's pop or whether it gets a bit more obscure with rock. But yeah, we're just happy to take it in any direction that's going to work, really. That's the bottom line, yeah.
Do you find the other members' music tastes are changing or altering too? And if so, I mean, because like obviously when you start a band, there's kind of some connective tissue you find between the other members, which is like this is a style of music we can all kind of agree on. I know, for example, that you guys mentioned like the kind of like mid 2000s kind of indie explosion as being like a particular kind of like point of reference for you guys. But generally, like I mean, do you find that like as you're listening to new music, as you're discovering new music, and the people you're playing with are also kind of receptive to the new things you're interested in, or are they just completely on their own or on their own algorithm, I guess, or how do you kind of like parse that, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, Neil and Petey, they do have their own taste in music. It is a lot different than mine. Neil likes classic rock like Guns N' Roses, Eric Clapton. Petey will listen to a snail walking across a graveled car park. He will listen to anything. They haven't changed. We do agree on some stuff that comes out nowadays that we both or that we all kind of enjoy, and but putting it into music, it's sort of just a thing that happens in the practice room, and we just work with it and see what happens, really.
Fair enough. One thing I wanted to ask actually, from your perception as someone who's living in Belfast in the Belfast music scene, is that I'm talking to a couple of artists from Belfast, and one thing I've been kind of noticing, and I wonder if you agree with this, is that a lot of artists when they're coming over to Ireland are kind of skipping Belfast and kind of just playing Dublin recently. Like the bands that used to play kind of like the SSE or the Ulster Hall or venues like that are kind of like skipping out, but uh like a lot of smaller venues like the Limelight or the Ulster Sports Club and places like that are getting like a lot of smaller acts getting like a lot of traction that way. Have you noticed that yourself? I mean, in terms of like the international acts that are coming to Belfast, and how do you feel about that?
International acts coming to Ireland. Yeah, I mean, I think it was last year we had to travel to Dublin to see Green Day,
Hmm.
Sam Fender, which was really, it's quite a trip, and you don't be home till like 2 o'clock in the morning. They definitely would have sold out a night in Belfast, 100%. Both of them would have, but it was a bit unfortunate. But yeah, you're getting a lot of other smaller acts coming to the Ulster Sports Club and that. I know, was it, the guy that plays Christopher Moltisanti from Sopranos?
Oh yes, yes. Oh, I forget his name. Yeah, Christopher. I forget that guy's name. Yeah, I know who you're talking about though.
I think he was in the Ulster Sports Club not too long ago. Don't quote me on that, but he
Oh, I
definitely.
know he plays. I didn't know he was
Yeah,
over here.
I nearly think he was, unless I'm getting them confused with the guy from Dexter. The guy.
Oh yes, yeah, no, he was over. Michael Scott Hall or something like that. I can't. Michael Lee Hall, something like that.
But yeah, those kind of venues are picking up, international smaller acts, which is great too, because those people never would have probably seen Belfast, and people from Belfast probably never would have got the chance to see them live.
Yeah. Do you find them for yourselves? I mean, that's in any way beneficial to kind of, perhaps even have the opportunity for like a sports slot or even just to be able to, because if you're in such like an intimate venue, there's an opportunity to actually talk with the artists that you're seeing, to maybe even just kind of like, be like, hey, I play in a band too, or anything like that.
Drop your name, yeah.
Yeah.
We're always trying to do that. I mean, we got a great support slot with the Wolfe Tones last year.
Oh,
Uh,
well.
so we continue to try do it. It can be really disheartening when
Yeah.
you know that you're the perfect match for a support slot and somebody else gets it, but that's just you just roll with the punches, and that's just the game of it. Really, you'll get your shot.
I, I have to ask about that. What was that like supporting the Wolf Tones?
Yeah, it was great. It was a fun day out. We all had work the next day, so we didn't go too mad, and it was a nice crowd to play in front of. And we didn't get to meet them either, but we met their stage crew and that, and they were really really nice and really helpful. But it was a nice experience to sort of have like a big massive stage and having all the support and the help from the whole crew. It was great.
Were the crowd receptive?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we were just sort of filling in for when people were, filling into the onto the field. But
Hmm.
it worked out really well. Really enjoyed it. It did lash rain, even though it was in the summer, so all our gear was destroyed, and
Oh,
my
Jesus.
guitar was not giving a good signal. But we still loved it. It was great.
Yeah, man, that's really cool. Like, yeah, I used to work in the theater in Dublin, and the Wolf Tones would play there every couple of months, and they would always break curfew.
Right.
Every Yeah, they would always, because you get a fine for going so many, every so many minutes you go over, the fine kind of builds up, and they would always just break it anyway and just pay the fine. Like,
Dive
ah,
there,
fair play.
not back pocket. I'm sure.
Yeah, man, fair play to them, man. They're still going for like 3 hours every night.
I think
They deserve their retirement.
coming up, do they though?
Sorry.
I think they've got their final gig coming up. Is that true?
Yeah, they keep saying that. I mean, they've been teasing their final gig for like 2 years now.
Right.
So
Yeah, that's
it's
it.
kind of like an Elton John situation.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
I want to ask about your new single then. So it's Somebody to Love, which comes out Friday as we're speaking. It'll be out by the time this is out. But yeah, I was wondering like well, I was going to talk a little bit about the topic of the song, but I guess before we do that, if maybe you could speak about what the song means to you.
Yeah, so it's basically just a song. I mean, sometimes you just get an idea by just realizing someone's situation and that. To put it into words, I kind of feel it's like looking back on someone that you knew and that was in a bad place, and you just don't know where they are at this point in time, and you're just wondering, did they turn out okay? Did it work out for them? Are they still the same person that you remember that they were? But yeah, it's just kind of like reflecting on someone you knew years ago that was pretty mental, to put it.
So songs about toxic relationships, and this is something that was interesting asking about that. So I noticed, and I don't know if you've noticed this too, that like I think toxic relationships are kind of becoming a huge staple in music now. A lot of people are kind of like writing about them. I think in a lot of ways, like people are now more aware of like things like red flags and stuff like that. When it comes to dating, when it comes to getting into relationships. So I was wondering, from your perspective, I mean, are you aware of kind of like the other artists who are writing about the same topic? And if so, does that kind of put any pressure on you to feel like you have to have a unique or a different view on the topic or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, you'll always like fact check your song against whoever you're getting inspiration from, and maybe try to one step further than them, just so it stands out a bit more, and maybe talk about a couple of taboo subjects, just so it has a bit of punch in it. But yeah, you can always grab inspiration from anybody, see what they're doing, and sort of try find it in your own life as well.
Yeah, actually, it's interesting you mentioned like taboo topics there because just earlier you were saying that like part of the Brother Voice kind of ethos is to kind of like resonate with as many people as possible. Do you find potentially doing songs about certain topics can be alienating, and if so, would that dissuade you from singing about something if you felt like impassioned or you felt like you had something to say?
I feel like I'll pretty much say anything as long as it doesn't get us cancelled. But uh, yeah, I mean, we're always looking for new song ideas, and it is pretty hard to come up with them instead of writing the same sort of soppy love song over and over and over again. So it's always good to sort of branch out and do something that's different. Uh, Maybe sing about something that not too many people would want to sing, and I think sometimes it just works. Yeah.
The interesting thing also about the song that I just wanted to note is that you name drop Kurt Cobain in it, and obviously, I mean, he's someone whose relationships have always been kind of speculated on. Obviously, I mean, like his relationship with Courtney Love has been well documented, and
Mm.
even like lately, I'm noticing people are kind of like speculating on his previous relationship with Tony Vale from Bikini Kill. I was wondering, was that like a conscious thing to kind of talk about like how even toxic relationships kind of expand beyond the two people that are in the relationship itself?
Sorry, Aaron, can you repeat that again?
Yeah,
Missed
I was
that.
just asking, was that like a conscious thing to try and talk about how toxic relationships kind of spill out beyond the two people itself and kind of bring a lot of conjecture and a lot of speculation?
Uh, in reference to the Kurt Cobain name drop, I feel like that's the clean version. So we had to find something that rhymed with a class A drug, and his name was the first that came up. And
Okay.
we didn't know if we wanted to go ahead with it. And then I sang it to Neil and Petey, and they said, "Yeah, just stick it in," because we were running pretty low on time in the studio, and we just put it in. It did kind of work, and it actually worked out nicely because he's pretty well known for his own toxic relationships, so it did fit in nicely to the song as well. And I'm sure people will pick up on that.
Perfect. Um, yeah, I think I've asked pretty much everything I have to ask. It's really nice talking with you again, James. I guess the final thing I'll just say is like, well, obviously the single's out on Friday. It'll be up by then, so. But beyond that, I mean, what does the rest of 2025 hold for you guys? Like, what's the plans?
Yeah, I think we're just going to keep knocking away at the music. We're going to try look for a bassist. Maybe hopefully get some festivals for August or September, and no matter how small they are, and try get some opening slots as well. I mean, we just keep. We really are the underdog band, and we're just going to keep doing it, even if it doesn't work out. I mean, we're just still happy doing it. But just more music, more gigs, more cover gigs, and more music videos as well.
Perfect. Actually, yeah, I think that's like an important thing too that you're kind of like mentioning there, where it's like kind of like you've talked about like the working with the same producer in the same studio for pretty much throughout your career. Do you find like building those kind of relationships that are actually long lasting is difficult? Because I find like in uh, this kind of industry, I don't know if you agree, but like a lot of relationships are kind of transactional. So people are into you when you're like the hottest shit, and they think they can get something from you.
Mm.
But then like once they don't feel like that anymore, they kind of like ditch you and stuff like that. So do you find that? I guess building those relationships that are like long lasting, professional relationships, I mean, that are long lasting and that can, and you guys have successfully done it, it seems. Do you think that's like important to actually try and make friends with certain promoters or to play the game a certain way, or are you just like completely opposed to that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I would be against, sending out spam emails and trying to pretend you're somebody's friend that you haven't
Mhm.
even met before in your life. In regards to Manor Park and Neil Calderwood, we've been with him since 2020, yeah, 2020 or so. Um, and it just, like you were saying, you're building that relationship with that person. The more he sees us, the more he knows what to do without even asking us. He just knows how to get through the day a lot quicker and a lot smoother, and come out with the best possible sound. We have a sound in our head before we bring the song to the studio, and for some reason he just nails it on the head every single time, and it just gets
Yeah.
better each time, really.
Yeah, I think a working relationship with a good producer who gets you and who understands you is like really significant. I mean, I think people can sometimes undervalue how important that dynamic is because there are plenty of great producers, but you kind of also have to get the producer that actually gets you and wants to elevate what it is you're doing. You know what I mean? Without altering it too much, that becomes their thing. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and I mean, you'd want someone that's not just, they don't see you as like a paycheck. They kind of want to enjoy making your song as well and doing the best that they can for you, which Neil's great for that.
You find that sometimes like those professional relationships can actually turn into kind of close friendships.
Uh, I mean, yeah, I feel like we've met a lot of people, but we've kind of all, we've sort of faded away from them at the same time, just with other things in our life. But yeah, it's good. Like even having a good photographer and that there as well on board, it does work wonders. You know.
Perfect. Thanks very much, James, and thanks for talking to me. And enjoy the rest of your day.
Martin, it's always a pleasure. Thank you again for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Take care, man.
Take care, sir. All the best. Bye
Best
bye.
luck. Thank you for listening to that episode of Post-Burnout.com interviews. We're an independent venture run by yours truly, and as I said at the beginning, liking, rating, subscribing, and sharing really helps us out a lot. If you're feeling extra generous, we do have a PayPal donation link in the episode description, but don't feel obligated, of course. We've also begun releasing occasional exclusive episodes on Spotify, so subscribe there if you'd be interested in hearing those. Thanks again for listening, and see you next time.